What's up? Rupert here, aka The Natural Capitalist, aka Brother Beans if you want to check out my music. But in this video I'm going to share with you a little bit of why The Natural Capitalist, why this YouTube channel, why this podcast, why this topic of conversation. And it's a pretty deep why, because the way I see it, nature and life is by its very nature capitalistic. Now, what do I mean by capital and capitalistic? I mean, capital is this accumulation of resource that is accumulated through a process of work. Energy is expended, accumulating this thing to build something that is then utilized in the future to make life better, easier. Plants are doing it. These trees are doing it. They're accumulating resources so that they can live a longer, healthier life. The birds are doing it when they're collecting all the twigs and little bits and things to make their nest. Animals are doing it when they're collecting food and resources to continue living. So nature is capitalistic by nature. Okay. Then along come humans, and we develop this prefrontal cortex and this ability to think, this ability to speak and use language as a form of capital, this ability to use technology as a form of capital, material capital. And as we're doing things, we're building up our experiential capital, which gets programmed into our bodies and we can just do things. But then it's not just the experience, we need the intellectual capital to be able to think things through, to imagine new ways of doing things. But then there's also, we can't do it on our own, so there's the social capital, right? That's the work you got to put into relationships with other people, building relationships over time. And that's the social capital. And then this is all still very deep in the consciousness, right? Very, very deep. And then there's, as our humans evolved, our groups got larger, we formed financial capital. Like material capital kind of merges into financial capital, right? This idea of money and the nature of money. That's deep too, because it's not some thing printed on a thing from some self-proclaimed authority. Money is a really deep medium it's like a language of human action. It's a medium that we can exchange goods and services with each other, with strangers, without having to rely on that social capital, right? It's like an accumulated social capital and experiential capital, material capital, kind of consolidated into money. Anyway, that's financial capital. But then there's also like the cultural capital, right? So as a society builds itself up, it's like there's all these stories and institutions, and that's the cultural capital. And then there's also like when we come back to the individual, as we've become conscious now, we're all on this spiritual journey, right? So there's spiritual capital. That's the many, many forms of capital. And now we're moving into this AI space. AI and the internet and technology. Technology, obviously, material, that falls under material, so that's material capital. But I think now we're in this age of information. So it's like there's digital capital. Right, and the digital capital comes in two forms. Content, you've got content out there working for you through your social capital, through your social channels. But then you've also got like software and programs, right? They're going to work for you. So there's so many forms of capital. This topic is so deep, and that's why I'm going all in on The Natural Capitalist. So I hope that gives you a little bit more insight into the why of The Natural Capitalist and the topic of this show, podcast, and YouTube channel. Peace.